The fluorescent lights of Elite Warrior Martial Arts Academy buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the training mats. Maria Santos pushed her cleaning cart quietly along the edge of the large gym, careful not to disturb the evening class in session. She'd learned in her 6 months working here to be invisible, present enough to do her job, but unnoticed enough to avoid trouble. At 42, Maria had the weathered hands of someone who'd worked hard her entire life. She'd been a Navy corpsman for 8 years before a training accident had damaged her spine, ending her military career. Now she cleaned gyms and office buildings at night, trying to make rent on a one-bedroom apartment she shared with her teenage daughter. And with Bailey. The golden retriever mix waited patiently by the back door, her leash tied to a water pipe. Bailey was 10 years old, graying around the muzzle, with soft brown eyes and a tail that never stopped wagging. She'd been Maria's service dog since the accident, trained to alert when Maria's chronic pain was spiking to bring medication, to provide stability when Maria's back gave out. But service dogs weren't supposed to be pets, and the gym's owner, Marcus Chen, had made it clear that Bailey was only tolerated because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. One complaint, he'd said, and Maria would need to find another job. So Maria kept Bailey quiet and out of the way, and prayed that nothing went wrong. Tonight, the advanced class was in full swing. 20 students in white gis with various colored belts, all watching as the head instructor demonstrated a complicated throw. The instructor was Tyler Blackwood, 35, heavily muscled, with a degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a second degree in Taekwondo. He was good at what he did, and he never let anyone forget it. The key is leverage, Tyler was saying, his voice carrying across the gym. Size doesn't matter if you understand body mechanics. Watch. He gestured to one of his senior students, a woman maybe half his weight, and proceeded to demonstrate the throw. It was smooth, technical, impressive. The class applauded. Maria had seen him teach dozens of times. She'd even admired his skill, though his arrogance grated on her. He treated the lower belts with barely concealed contempt, reserved his real attention for the students who might bring prestige to his school, and spoke to Maria like she was furniture. She'd dealt with worse in the military. She could handle Tyler Blackwood. Maria moved to the storage room to empty trash bins, working efficiently despite the constant ache in her lower back. Through the open door, she heard the class continue, the slap of bodies on mats, the sharp calls of technique names, Tyler's voice correcting and critiquing. Then she heard Bailey bark. It was unusual. Bailey almost never barked. Maria hurried back to the gym floor, her heart sinking. Bailey was standing now, her body rigid, her attention locked on something outside the back door. The door had a small window, and through it, Maria could see movement in the parking lot. "What's the dog barking at?" Tyler's voice cut through the gym, sharp with irritation. The entire class had stopped to look. "I'm sorry," Maria said quickly, moving toward Bailey. "She doesn't usually." "I don't care what she usually does. Shut her up or get her out of here." Maria reached Bailey, putting a calming hand on the dog's head. Bailey whined, still staring at the window, and Maria looked out to see what had spooked her. In the parking lot, 3 men were circling a car. Even through the window, Maria could see they were trying to break into it. One of them had a tool in his hand, a slim Jim, maybe, working on the door lock. Maria's military training kicked in. She pulled out her phone, dialing 911 while keeping her voice low. "Yes, I need to report a car break-in in progress. Elite Warrior Gym parking lot, 4850 Industrial Boulevard." Behind her, Tyler's voice rose. "Are you making a phone call during my class?" Maria turned, the phone still to her ear. "There are men breaking into a car in the parking lot." "And that's my problem, how?" Tyler strode toward her, his face flushed with anger. "You're disrupting my class. You and that dog need to leave, now." "Sir, I just need a minute." Tyler reached out and grabbed Maria's phone, ending the call. "I said now." The gym went silent. 20 students watched, some with shock, others with the carefully neutral expressions of people who'd learned not to get involved. Maria felt her face flush with humiliation and anger. "That's my property, you can't. I can do whatever I want in my gym. You're an employee, and I'm telling you to control your dog and stop causing disruptions." Bailey was barking again, more urgently now. Through the window, Maria saw one of the men in the parking lot looking toward the gym, alerted by the sound. "PL, Ease, Maria said, trying to keep her voice steady. Just let me call the police. The police, Tyler laughed. For what? Some guy's in a parking lot, you're being hysterical. They're breaking into someone's car. Then whoever owns the car can deal with it. That's not your job. Your job is to clean and stay out of the way. Tyler stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. Now get that dog quiet or get out. Maria felt her back spasm, the pain sharp enough to make her gasp. She reached for the wall to steady herself, and Bailey immediately moved to her side, providing support just as she'd been trained to do. Tyler sneered. What's wrong? Can't handle a simple conversation. I have a spinal injury. That's why you have the dog, right? Well, the dog is causing problems. Maybe you should find a job where you don't need a babysitter. The cruelty of it, the casual dismissal of her pain, her service, her dignity, hit Maria like a physical blow. She'd served her country. She'd saved lives as a corpsman. She'd sacrificed her health in service to others. And this man was treating her like she was nothing. Tyler, maybe ease up. One of the senior students, a brown belt named Jessica, had stepped forward. She's just trying to do the right thing. Tyler rounded on her. Did I ask for your opinion? No, then get back on the mat. Jessica flinched but held her ground. The dog's a service animal, you can't just... I can do whatever I want. This is my school. Tyler turned back to Maria. You have two choices. Shut that dog up and get back to work, or leave and don't come back. Maria's hands trembled. She needed this job. She couldn't afford to lose it. But she also couldn't stand here and let someone be victimized in the parking lot while this bully threw his weight around. I'm calling the police, she said quietly, reaching for her phone in Tyler's hand. Tyler jerked it away. No, you're not. Give me back my phone. Or what? Tyler's smile was ugly. You going to make me? You can't even stand up straight. Bailey growled, a low, rumbling sound that Maria had never heard from her before. The dog moved between Maria and Tyler, her body language shifting from supportive to protective. Tyler looked down at the dog with contempt. That much threatening me. She's protecting me. That's what she's trained to do. Well, she's not trained very well, is she? Tyler moved suddenly, his foot lashing out in a precise kick that caught Bailey in the ribs. The dog yelped and stumbled backward, her legs collapsing. Maria screamed, dropping to her knees beside Bailey, her own pain forgotten in her terror for her dog. Bailey, baby, are you okay? Maria's hands ran over the dog's body, checking for injuries. Bailey was whimpering, trying to stand but favoring her side. The gym had erupted in chaos. Students were shouting, some at Tyler, some trying to calm the situation. Jessica had pulled out her phone, already dialing. And Tyler just stood there, his chest heaving, his face still flushed with anger but now with something else too, the realization that he'd gone too far. She attacked me, he said to no one in particular. The dog attacked me. I was defending myself. That's a lie. Maria's voice was raw with emotion. She didn't attack anyone. You kicked her because you could. Prove it. Maria looked around wildly at the students, at the people who'd witnessed everything. Some looked away. Others met her eyes with sympathy but said nothing. They trained here. They'd invested time and money. They weren't going to risk Tyler's wrath for a janitor they barely knew. Only Jessica spoke up. I saw it. You kicked her dog unprovoked. Tyler's eyes went cold. Jessica, you're done here. Turn in your belt. What? You can't. I just did. Get out of my school. Jessica stared at him for a long moment, then slowly untied her brown belt. She dropped it on the mat and walked toward the door, pausing to kneel beside Maria. I'm sorry, Jessica whispered. I called 911. The police are coming. Then she was gone, and Maria was alone with her injured dog, surrounded by silent witnesses who'd chosen not to see. The back door opened. A man walked in, tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of build that came from functional strength rather than gym vanity. He wore jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, and had the weathered look of someone who'd spent years in the sun. His eyes were blue and calm, taking in the scene with the practiced assessment of someone trained to read situations quickly. Behind him, padding on silent paws, came a Belgian Malinois with a tactical harness, and patches that read Naval Special Warfare Command. Tyler turned toward the newcomer, his face still flushed. We're closed to visitors. You need to. I need to check on my car, the man said calmly. The one those 3 guys in your parking lot were trying to break into. He walked past Tyler, seemingly unconcerned by the black belt's posturing, and knelt beside Maria and Bailey. His hands moved over the dog with professional competence, checking the same places Maria had. Broken rib, maybe 2, he said quietly. She needs a vet. He looked up at Maria, and there was something in his eyes, recognition, understanding. You military. Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. Corpsman, how did you? The way you're checking her injuries, the way you're keeping pressure off your own back while doing it. I've worked with enough Navy medical personnel to recognize the training. He extended his hand. Commander Jake Morrison, SEAL Team 3, this is Thor. The Malinois had moved to Bailey's other side, sniffing gently, his tail wagging slowly, the canine version of offering comfort. Maria took his hand, her own trembling. Petty Officer First Class Maria Santos, former corpsman. Former, Morrison's eyes narrowed slightly. Training accident, medical discharge 8 years ago. Morrison nodded, then stood, turning to face Tyler. His expression hadn't changed, still calm, still controlled, but something in his posture had shifted. He looked like a man who'd made a decision. So, Morrison said conversationally, you want to tell me why you kicked a disabled veteran service dog? Tyler Blackwood had built his reputation on intimidation. He was bigger than most people, better trained, and he'd cultivated an aura of danger that made students afraid to question him. He'd pushed around countless people over the years, students who weren't committed enough, employees who didn't show proper respect, anyone who challenged his authority in his school. But something in his hindbrain was screaming at him that Jake Morrison was different. I didn't kick anyone's dog, Tyler said, injecting false confidence into his voice. The animal attacked me. I defended myself. That's my right. Morrison's expression didn't change. Is that what happened? The dog attacked you? Yes, ask anyone here. Tyler gestured to his students, confident that they'd back him up. They always did. Morrison turned to the class, his gaze sweeping over them. Did anyone see this dog attack? Silence. Students looked at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at Morrison or Maria. Jessica's voice came from near the door. I saw it. He's lying. He kicked the dog because she was protecting Maria. Bailey never attacked anyone. Tyler's face flushed darker. You're already expelled. Your testimony doesn't matter. Actually, Morrison said quietly, it matters a lot, because assault on a service animal is a federal crime, and assault on a disabled veteran while interfering with her service animal is about 3 different kinds of federal crime. So whether or not anyone here wants to testify is going to determine whether this stays a civil matter or becomes a federal case. Tyler felt the first flutter of real fear. You can't prove anything. Can't I? Morrison pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen to show Tyler. That's the parking lot security footage. I pulled it while I was checking on my car. See that window? That's this gym. And that's you. He pointed at the screen, clearly visible kicking a dog while a woman tries to protect her. Time-stamped, dated, admissible in court. Tyler's mouth went dry. There were security cameras in the parking lot. He'd forgotten about them. But maybe you're right, Morrison continued. Maybe the dog attacked you, so let's check her. He gestured to Thor. Thor, check. The Malinois moved to Bailey, sniffing carefully at her mouth and paws. The examination took maybe 15 seconds. Then Thor sat and looked at Morrison, his head tilted slightly, a negative signal. Thor's trained in detection and evidence work. He's also trained to identify dogs that have been in fights or have attacked people. There's a specific scent profile, adrenaline, aggression markers, saliva pH changes. Bailey doesn't have it because she didn't attack anyone. Morrison's voice was still calm, but now there was steel underneath it. You kicked a disabled veteran service dog because you were angry and wanted to feel powerful. That's the truth, isn't it? Tyler looked around wildly. His students were watching with wide eyes. Some looked horrified. Others looked like they were seeing him clearly for the first time. This is my school, Tyler said, his voice rising. You don't get to come in here and what, hold you accountable? Morrison took a step forward. Tyler, despite himself, took a step back. Let me explain something to you. That woman you just assaulted, she served her country as a Navy corpsman. Do you know what that means? Tyler didn't answer. It means she ran toward gunfire to save wounded Marines. It means she put her body between injured men and enemy fire. It means she sacrificed her health, maybe her whole future. to serve people who needed her. Morrison's voice never rose, but somehow it filled the entire gym. And you, someone who plays at being a warrior in an air-conditioned gym, you think you have the right to treat her like garbage. I didn't assault anyone, Tyler insisted. You grabbed her phone, that's assault. You kicked her dog, that's assault on a service animal and interference with assistive equipment. You created a hostile work environment, that's multiple labor violations, and you did it all in front of 20 witnesses. Morrison glanced around the gym. Witnesses who I'm guessing are going to be real cooperative when the police show up. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Tyler's panic was rising. His school, his reputation, everything he'd built could disappear if this went wrong. Look, he said, trying a different tack. Maybe I overreacted. Let's just all calm down. Maria, he turned to her, his voice suddenly conciliatory. I'm sorry about your dog. Let me pay the vet bills. We can forget this whole thing happened. Maria was still kneeling beside Bailey, her face streaked with tears. She looked up at Tyler, and the contempt in her eyes made him flinch. You can't buy your way out of this, she said quietly. You hurt Bailey because you could, because you thought I didn't matter enough to stop you. Her voice strengthened. But I do matter. I served my country. I earned my respect, and I'm not letting you get away with this. The sirens were right outside now. Through the window, Tyler could see police cars pulling into the parking lot. Morrison moved to the door and opened it, gesturing to the officers. In here. 2 police officers entered, a man and a woman, both with the alert competence of experienced cops. Their eyes took in the scene. The injured dog, the crying woman, the angry black belt, the calm SEAL with his K-9 partner. Someone want to tell us what happened? The male officer asked. Jessica stepped forward. I called you. I witnessed an assault on a service animal. That man, she pointed at Tyler, kicked this woman's service dog without provocation. Tyler started to protest, but the female officer held up a hand. Sir, you'll get your chance to speak. Let her finish. Jessica described everything, Tyler's treatment of Maria, his dismissal of the car break-in, his grabbing of Maria's phone, and finally his kicking of Bailey. Her voice was steady, her testimony clear. When she finished, the male officer turned to Tyler. Is this accurate? No, the dog attacked me. I defended myself. Can anyone else confirm that? The officer looked around at the students. Silence, then slowly a few students shook their heads. One spoke up, a young man with a green belt. That's not what I saw. The dog was just standing there. Tyler kicked her. Another voice. Yeah, I saw it too. The dog didn't attack. Tyler watched his world crumble as one by one, his students told the truth. The ones he'd intimidated, the ones who'd been afraid to speak up, they were finding their courage now that someone else had gone first. Morrison provided the security footage. The officers watched it, their expressions hardening. Mr. Blackwood, the female officer said, you're under arrest for assault on a service animal, and interference with assistive equipment under the Americans with Disabilities Act. You have the right to remain silent. Tyler barely heard the Miranda warning. He was watching his students' faces, seeing disappointment, anger, betrayal. Years of building his reputation, destroyed in one moment of cruelty. As the officers led Tyler away in handcuffs, Morrison knelt beside Maria again. We need to get Bailey to a vet. Can you stand? Maria tried, but her back gave out. She gasped with pain, and Morrison caught her before she fell. Thor, support. The Malinois immediately moved to Maria's other side, positioning himself so she could lean on him. With Thor's help and Morrison's steady arm, Maria got to her feet. My truck's outside, Morrison said. Let me take you both to the emergency vet. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. Morrison's voice was gentle. Besides, Thor's already decided he likes Bailey. Dogs are good judges of character. They made their way outside, Maria leaning heavily on both Morrison and Thor, Bailey limping beside them. The students filed out behind them, silent and shaken. Jessica approached as Morrison was helping Maria into his truck. Maria, I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner. I should have. You stood up when it mattered, Maria said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you. Morrison carefully lifted Bailey into the truck bed, which was equipped with a kennel and padding, clearly set up for Thor. The Malinois hopped up beside Bailey, settling next to her with his body providing warmth and support. As they drove to the emergency, Vet clinic, Maria watched the two dogs in the rearview mirror. Bailey's tail was wagging weakly, and Thor was gently licking her ears, the kind of comfort one dog gives another. "Why are you helping me?" Maria asked finally. "You don't know me." Morrison was quiet for a moment. 8 years ago, I was on an operation that went bad. We had casualties, and our corpsman, a woman named Sarah Chen, she kept 3 guys alive under fire for 40 minutes until medevac arrived. She took shrapnel doing it, messed up her arm permanently. And when we got back to base, you know what she said? Maria shook her head. She said, "I just did my job." Like it was nothing, like she hadn't just traded her career to save her teammates. Morrison glanced at Maria. "You corpsmen, you run toward danger to help people. You don't do it for glory or recognition. You do it because someone needs help. So when I see a former corpsman being mistreated, when I see someone kicking their service dog, I'm going to help. That's what teammates do." Maria felt tears streaming down her face again, but this time they weren't from pain or humiliation. They were from relief, from the overwhelming gratitude of being seen, being valued, being defended. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a long night ahead of us." He was right. The emergency vet examination revealed that Bailey had 2 cracked ribs and severe bruising. She would heal, but she needed pain management, rest, and careful monitoring. The vet bill came to $1,800. Maria stared at the number, her heart sinking. She had maybe $300 in her checking account. Her daughter needed new school clothes. Rent was due in 2 weeks. "I'll set up a payment plan," she said quietly to the vet tech. "Already taken care of," the tech replied, looking confused. "The gentleman with the military dog paid the whole thing." Maria turned to find Morrison standing by the door, Thor at his side. "Commander Morrison, I can't let you." "It's done. Bailey needs care, and you need to focus on healing, not on bills." He held up a hand before she could protest. "Besides, I'm going to send Tyler Blackwood the invoice, along with a few other bills." "What do you mean?" Morrison smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "I mean that by the time I'm done, Tyler Blackwood is going to understand exactly what it costs to hurt a veteran and their service dog." The next morning, Maria woke up on her small apartment couch with Bailey curled carefully on a cushion beside her. The pain medication the vet had prescribed was helping the dog rest, but every so often Bailey would whimper softly, and Maria's heart would break all over again. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Maria, this is Jake Morrison. How are you and Bailey doing?" Maria typed back, "She's resting, thank you again for everything." "Good, I need you to do something for me today. Can you come to the VA hospital at 2 p.m.? There's someone I want you to meet. I'll send a car." Maria stared at the message, confused but curious. "Okay, but who?" "A lawyer's." An hour later, a sedan pulled up outside Maria's apartment. The driver helped her and Bailey into the back seat. Bailey was moving better today, but still needed to be lifted, and drove them to the VA hospital. Morrison was waiting in the lobby with Thor. The Malinois immediately went to Bailey, sniffing her gently, his tail wagging. Bailey's tail responded, thumping weakly against Maria's leg. "They're bonding," Morrison observed. "Thor doesn't usually take to other dogs this quickly." "Bailey likes him too," Maria smiled despite her exhaustion. "So what's this about a lawyer?" Morrison led her to a private conference room where a woman in her 50s waited. She wore a professional suit and had the sharp eyes of someone who missed nothing. "Maria Santos, this is Patricia Gonzalez. She's a veteran rights attorney who specializes in ADA violations and veteran discrimination cases." Patricia stood, extending her hand. "Ms. Santos, Commander Morrison briefed me on your situation. I'd like to represent you in a civil suit against Tyler Blackwood and Elite Warrior Martial Arts Academy." Maria sat down slowly, Bailey settling at her feet. "I don't have money for a lawyer." "This is pro bono. I don't charge veterans for cases involving service animal abuse or workplace discrimination." Patricia opened a folder. "Now, let's talk about what Tyler Blackwood did and what we're going to do about it." For the next hour, Patricia walked Maria through the legal options. Assault charges were already filed. The police had arrested Tyler the night before, and he'd posted bail that morning. But beyond the criminal case, there were civil remedies. "We're going to sue for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, ADA violations, workplace harassment, and interference with assistive equipment." Patrick. Iyer explained. We're also going to file complaints with the State Labor Board and the Better Business Bureau, and we're going to make sure every potential student knows what kind of person runs that gym. Will any of this actually work? Maria asked. He has money, he has connections, I'm just a decorated veteran who was assaulted while trying to report a crime, Patricia cut in firmly. Maria, you have witnesses, you have security footage, you have a Navy SEAL commander willing to testify. Tyler Blackwood is going to learn a very expensive lesson about accountability. Morrison leaned forward. There's something else. I made some calls last night. Turns out Tyler Blackwood has a history. 3 former students filed complaints about his teaching methods, excessive force, harassment, creating unsafe training environments. The complaints were settled quietly with NDAs, but NDAs don't apply to criminal investigations or federal civil rights cases. You're saying he's done this before? I'm saying he's gotten away with it before. That ends now. Morrison's voice was hard. I've also reached out to his black belt certifying organizations. They're going to investigate whether he's violated their codes of conduct. If he has, he could lose his credentials. Maria felt overwhelmed. Yesterday, she'd been a janitor trying to survive. Today, she had a Navy SEAL and a veteran rights attorney fighting for her. Why, she asked, why are you both doing this for me? Patricia answered first. Because I was an Army paralegal for 20 years. I saw too many veterans get screwed by the system, by employers, by people who thought they didn't matter. When I retired, I made a promise to fight for veterans who couldn't fight for themselves. You're keeping me to that promise. Morrison's answer was simpler. Because it's right, and because nobody should get away with hurting someone who served their country. Over the next few weeks, Maria watched Tyler Blackwood's world unravel with methodical precision. The criminal case moved forward. The district attorney, armed with video evidence and multiple witness statements, offered Tyler a plea deal. Plead guilty to assault and pay restitution, or go to trial and risk a felony conviction. Tyler refused, confident that his lawyers could make the case go away. They couldn't. The trial lasted 3 days. Jessica testified about what she'd witnessed. Other students testified about Tyler's pattern of bullying behavior. The security footage was played for the jury, clear, undeniable evidence of Tyler kicking Bailey. Morrison testified as an expert witness, explaining service dog behavior and training. He described how Bailey had been performing her job, alerting to Maria's pain, providing stability, and how Tyler's actions had interfered with a disabled veteran's assistive equipment. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Tyler to 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and ordered him to pay full restitution for Bailey's medical care plus damages to Maria. But the criminal case was only the beginning. Patricia's civil suit was devastating. She'd found the 3 former students who'd signed NDAs, and with the criminal conviction, they were willing to talk. Their stories painted a picture of a man who used his martial arts skills to intimidate and hurt people, who created a toxic environment in his school, and who'd gotten away with it for years because his victims were afraid to speak up. The civil trial was even more damaging. The jury awarded Maria $200,000 in compensatory damages and an additional $500,000 in punitive damages, a number specifically chosen to hurt, to punish, to send a message. Elite Warrior Martial Arts Academy closed its doors 2 weeks after the verdict. Tyler Blackwood filed for bankruptcy. And Maria Santos, for the first time in 8 years, felt like justice had been served. But Morrison wasn't done. 3 months after Tyler's conviction, Maria stood in a completely different kind of gym. This one was smaller, cleaner, with walls covered in photos of veterans and active-duty military. The sign outside read Warrior's Path, Martial Arts for Veterans and First Responders. Morrison stood beside her, Thor at his heel, as they watched a class in progress. The instructor was a former Marine with 1 prosthetic leg. His students included veterans of various ages and abilities, some with visible disabilities, others with invisible wounds. And teaching a beginner's class in the corner was Jessica, the brown belt who'd stood up for Maria that night. She'd found a new school, earned her black belt, and had started focusing on adaptive martial arts for people with disabilities. This is what martial arts should be, Morrison said quietly, building people up, not tearing them down. Maria nodded, watching Bailey interact with Thor. The two dogs had become inseparable over the past months. Bailey's ribs had healed completely, and she moved with her old energy. Thor had appointed himself her unofficial guardian, and whenever they were together, he stayed close to her side. "I have something to tell you," Maria said. "I got a job offer." Morrison turned to her, interested. "Yeah, doing what?" "The VA hospital needs a veterans advocate. Someone to help other vets navigate the system, fight for their benefits, connect them with resources. Patricia recommended me." "That's perfect. You'd be great at that." "I think so too. It's part-time to start, but it pays better than cleaning gyms, and it feels meaningful, like I'm serving again, just in a different way." Maria paused. "I wanted to thank you for everything, for standing up for me, for getting me help, for doing what anyone should have done," Morrison interrupted gently. "You don't need to thank me for that." "But I do, because most people wouldn't have. Most people would have walked past, would have looked away, would have decided it wasn't their problem." Maria's voice was thick with emotion. "You saw someone who needed help and you helped. That matters more than you know." Jessica finished her class and walked over, her face lighting up when she saw Bailey. "How's my favorite girl?" She knelt to scratch Bailey's ears, and the dog's tail wagged enthusiastically. "She's doing great," Maria said. "How are you?" "Really good, actually. I'm training for my second-degree test next month. And," Jessica's smile widened, "I'm starting a program specifically for kids with disabilities, teaching them martial arts as therapy and confidence building." "That's amazing." "It's inspired by you and Bailey, honestly. Watching how she helps you, how you two work together, it made me realize that martial arts can be so much more than just fighting. It can be healing." The gym owner, Master Sergeant Retired Carlos Rivera, approached their group. "Maria, glad you could make it today. I wanted to talk to you about something." "What's that?" "We're starting a service dog training program here, teaching basic obedience and public access skills for veterans who need service animals. I was hoping you and Bailey might be willing to help demonstrate, maybe mentor some of the newer handlers." Maria looked down at Bailey, who looked back up at her with those soft brown eyes, tail wagging. "I think Bailey would love that." "Good, because we've got 15 veterans on a waiting list for service dogs, and most of them don't know where to start. Having someone who's been there, who can show them how it works, that would be invaluable." As they talked, planning the details of the program, Morrison watched with quiet satisfaction. This was how you fixed broken systems, not by working within them, but by building something better alongside them. Not by tearing down the bad, but by lifting up the good. Tyler Blackwood had created a toxic environment that hurt people. So they'd created a healing environment that helped people. It was that simple and that important. Morrison's phone buzzed with a message. He glanced at it, then showed it to Maria. It was from Patricia. "Tyler just violated his probation, failed a drug test. Judge revoked his bail. He's going back to jail." Maria stared at the message, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was glad that he was facing consequences, glad that he wouldn't hurt anyone else for a while. But another part of her just felt tired. Tired of anger, tired of justice being necessary, tired of the whole ugly situation. "You okay?" Morrison asked. "Yeah, I wish none of it had happened. I wish he'd been a better person. I wish Bailey had never been hurt." "I know, but you can't change people who don't want to change. You can only control how you respond." Morrison looked around the gym, at the veterans training together, supporting each other, healing together. "And you responded by helping build something good. That matters." Bailey barked once sharply, and both Morrison and Maria turned to look. Thor was standing at attention, his ears perked forward, focused on something across the gym. A young veteran had just walked in, maybe 25, with the haunted eyes and careful movements of someone dealing with PTSD. He stood in the doorway looking uncertain, like he might turn and leave at any moment. Jessica saw him and smiled, walking over to greet him. "First time here? Come on in, we don't bite." Morrison whistled softly to Thor. "Go say hello, buddy." The Malinois trotted across the gym to the new veteran, his tail wagging. The young man's face lit up as he knelt to pet Thor, and some of the tension left his shoulders. "That's why we do this," Morrison said to Maria. "One person at a time, one dog at a time, one day at a time." Maria watched as Bailey limped over to joined Thor, both dogs now surrounding the young veteran with warmth and acceptance, and she understood. Tyler Blackwood had hurt her because he was small inside, cruel and insecure and desperate to feel powerful. But his cruelty had set in motion something bigger than he could have imagined. It had brought together veterans who supported each other, professionals who fought for justice, and dogs who healed with their presence. "I'm going to talk to him," Maria said, starting across the gym toward the new veteran. "See if he needs help navigating the VA system." Morrison smiled as he watched her go, this woman who'd been knocked down and had gotten back up, who'd been hurt and had chosen to help others heal. This was what courage looked like, not the absence of fear or pain, but the decision to keep serving anyway. Thor returned to his side and Morrison scratched the dog's ears. "Good job, buddy. You always know who needs help, don't you?" Thor's tail wagged, and together they watched as Maria welcomed another wounded veteran into a place of safety and healing. This was how you won, not by defeating your enemies, but by taking care of your people. 6 months later, Maria stood before a crowded auditorium at the VA hospital. Behind her, a presentation screen displayed photos of veterans with their service dogs. In the front row sat Morrison with Thor, Patricia with her legal files, and Jessica with her students. Bailey lay at Maria's feet, her new therapy dog vest gleaming under the lights. "Good afternoon," Maria began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My name is Maria Santos, and I'm here to talk about the Veterans Service Dog Advocacy Program, what it is, why it matters, and how it's changing lives." She clicked to the next slide, which showed the program's statistics. 50 veterans matched with service dogs in 6 months, 200 more on the waiting list, a 95% success rate in training and placement. 8 months ago, I was assaulted while trying to do my job. A man kicked my service dog because he could, because he thought I didn't matter, because he'd gotten away with treating people badly for so long that he believed he was untouchable. The audience was silent, listening. But he was wrong. I did matter. And the reason I'm standing here today is because people saw what happened and decided to help. A Navy SEAL commander who could have walked away but didn't. A lawyer who fights for veterans because she believes we deserve justice. Students who found the courage to speak truth even when it was scary. Maria clicked to a new slide. A photo of Tyler Blackwood's now closed gym, boarded up and covered in graffiti. Tyler Blackwood lost everything, his business, his reputation, his freedom. But this story isn't about him. It's about what happened after. It's about the community that formed to support veterans, the programs that were created, the lives that were changed. She showed photos of the Warriors Path Gym, of veterans training together, of service dogs learning to help their handlers. We've trained 50 service dogs in the past 6 months. We've helped veterans get the medical care they needed, the benefits they'd been denied, the support they deserved. And we've shown that one act of cruelty can spark a movement of compassion. Maria paused, looking out at the audience. Veterans, active duty military, civilian supporters, and members of the press who'd come to cover the program's success. Bailey saved my life long before Tyler Blackwood kicked her. She gave me independence, stability, and purpose when I'd lost all three. But after she was hurt, she became something more. She became a symbol, proof that service dogs aren't just pets or equipment but partners, family, heroes in their own right. She clicked to the final slide, a photo of Bailey and Thor lying side by side, both wearing their working dog vests. Today, Bailey is certified as both a service dog and a therapy dog. She visits the VA hospital twice a week, bringing comfort to veterans who are struggling. She helps train other service dogs, showing them how to be gentle and patient. And she reminds me every day that healing isn't about forgetting what hurt us. It's about using that hurt to help others. The audience erupted in applause. Maria felt tears on her cheeks but kept her voice steady. So to everyone here today, whether you're a veteran looking for help, a supporter wanting to contribute, or someone who's faced discrimination and abuse, please know this. You matter. Your service matters. Your pain matters. And there are people who will fight for you, who will stand with you, who will make sure justice is served. She looked directly at Morrison. Thank you, Commander, for showing me what true courage looks like. Thank you for reminding me that being strong doesn't mean fighting alone. It means knowing when to accept help and when to give it. Morrison nodded his expression serious but warm. After the presentation, people swarmed Maria with questions, with stories, with requests for help. She answered each one patiently, connecting veterans with resources, explaining the program, offering hope. Morrison waited until the crowd thinned, then approached with Thor. That was a hell of a speech. Learned from the best, Maria smiled. I heard you're deploying again next month. Yeah, 6-month rotation. Thor and I are heading back to Syria. Be safe. Always, Morrison paused. Listen, I wanted to tell you something before I leave. Patricia's firm is setting up a permanent legal fund for veterans' rights cases. They're naming it the Bailey Fund after your dog. Maria's breath caught. Really? Really, your case brought in a lot of attention, a lot of donations. People want to help veterans who are facing discrimination or abuse, and they want Bailey's name attached to it, a reminder that service dogs and their handlers deserve protection. Maria knelt beside Bailey, hugging her dog close. Bailey's tail wagged, thumping against Maria's leg, and she licked Maria's face. You hear that, girl? You're famous. Thor patted over and lay down beside Bailey, resting his head on her back. The two dogs had developed a friendship that transcended their training. They weren't just working dogs, they were companions, partners in the truest sense. Thor's going to miss her while we're gone, Morrison observed. Bailey will miss him too. Maria looked up at Morrison. Will you come back after your deployment? Count on it. Someone's got to make sure you're not working too hard, taking on too many cases, forgetting to take care of yourself. That's what Bailey's for. Bailey can't make you take actual vacations. Morrison smiled. Besides, I figure Thor deserves some downtime with his girlfriend when we get back. Maria laughed, a real genuine laugh that felt like sunshine. It's a deal. 2 weeks later, Morrison and Thor deployed, but the work they'd started continued. The Veterans Service Dog Advocacy Program expanded to 3 more states. The Bailey Fund provided legal representation to 17 veterans facing discrimination cases. Warriors Path Gym opened a second location. And Maria Santos, once a janitor who nobody saw, became a voice for veterans who needed someone to speak up for them. She gave talks at schools, at military bases, at veteran organizations. She lobbied for stronger service dog protection laws. She helped individual veterans navigate bureaucratic nightmares and fight for their rights. And through it all, Bailey was by her side, aging now, moving a little slower but still working, still serving, still giving everything she had to help her person. Tyler Blackwood served his sentence and was released after 4 months for good behavior. He moved to another state, took a job in construction, and disappeared from public view. Sometimes Maria wondered if he'd learned anything, if he'd changed, if he ever thought about the consequences of his cruelty. But mostly, she didn't think about him at all. Because her life had moved beyond that one night in the gym. It had grown into something bigger, something meaningful, something that helped people every single day. On a cool morning in December, Maria's daughter Sophia came home from college for winter break. She was studying social work now, inspired by her mother's advocacy work. Mom, there's someone at the door for you, Sophia called from the living room. Maria emerged from her home office, the spare bedroom she'd converted into a workspace, to find Morrison standing in her doorway. He was thinner, tanned from months in the desert, but smiling. And beside him, tail wagging furiously, was Thor. Bailey struggled to her feet from her bed, her arthritis making movement difficult these days. But she made it to Thor, and the two dogs greeted each other with wagging tails and gentle sniffs, like old friends reuniting after too long apart. You're back, Maria said, emotion thick in her voice. Told you I'd come back. Morrison stepped inside and Sophia hugged him. She'd met him several times over video calls and considered him part of the family now. Brought you something. He handed Maria a folder. Inside were photos of Morrison and Thor working with a female army medic in Syria, a young woman who'd been injured by an IED and was struggling with her recovery. Her name's Private First Class Emma Reyes, Morrison explained. She'd given up, thought her career was over, thought she didn't matter anymore, but I told her about you, about how you'd served, how you'd been hurt, how you'd found purpose again. And I showed her what you're doing now, helping other veterans, fighting for their rights. What happened? She decided to keep fighting. She's in physical therapy now, working toward getting her own service dog. And she asked me to tell you thank you for showing her that healing is possible. Maria felt tears streaming down her face. I didn't do anything. You did everything. You refused to be a victim. You chose to help others instead of giving up. You built something good out of something terrible. Morrison's voice was gentle. That's what heroes do, Maria. They turn their pain into purpose. That evening they all gathered at Warriors Path Gym. Maria, Sophia, Morrison, Patricia, Jessica, and dozens of veterans who'd been helped by the programs they'd created. The gym was decorated for a holiday party, but it was more than that. It was a celebration of community, of healing, of second chances. Bailey and Thor lay together near the refreshment table, both wearing festive bandanas, both accepting treats and pets from everyone who passed. They were old dogs now. Bailey was 12, Thor was 9, but they still had important work to do. They still mattered. Master Sergeant Rivera called for everyone's attention. I want to make a toast to Maria Santos, who turned tragedy into triumph, to Commander Morrison, who showed us what it means to stand up for others, to Bailey and Thor, who prove every day that heroes come in all forms, and to every veteran here tonight, you served with honor and you deserve to live with dignity. This gym, these programs, this community, it's all for you. Never forget that you matter. You matter, everyone choroed, raising their glasses. Maria looked around the room at the faces of veterans who were healing, who were thriving, who were rediscovering their purpose. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the pain, the injustice, the moment when everything could have gone differently. If Tyler hadn't been cruel, none of this would exist. But his cruelty had sparked something he never intended. A movement of compassion, a community of support, a legacy of healing. What are you thinking about? Morrison asked quietly, appearing beside her. I'm thinking that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. That sometimes we have to go through hell to find our purpose. Maria smiled. And I'm thinking that I'm grateful. For Bailey, for you, for everyone here who refused to let one man's cruelty define my story. Your story isn't about him, Morrison said firmly. It never was. It's about you, your courage, your compassion, your refusal to give up. Tyler Blackwood was just an obstacle. You're the hero. Sophia appeared with a camera. Mom, can we get a photo? You, Commander Morrison, Bailey, and Thor. They gathered together, two humans who'd served their country and found new ways to serve, two dogs who'd given everything to help their people. The photo captured them all smiling, surrounded by community, filled with purpose. That photo would eventually hang in the VA hospital lobby with a plaque beneath it. Heroes aren't born. They're forged in moments of crisis when ordinary people make extraordinary choices. These are our heroes. Years later, when Maria was finally too old to work, when Bailey had passed peacefully in her sleep and Thor had long since retired, that photo would still hang in the VA hospital. It would inspire new generations of veterans to seek help, to advocate for themselves, to believe that they mattered. And in gyms and therapy centers and legal offices across the country, the programs Maria and Morrison had started would continue, helping veterans heal, protecting service dogs, fighting for justice. Because that's what real warriors do. They don't just fight battles, they build communities, they protect the vulnerable. They turn pain into purpose and cruelty into compassion. They make sure that when someone hurts a veteran or their service dog, there are consequences. And they make sure that every veteran knows, beyond any doubt, that they matter.